Friends, we're here with the greens and cannot wait to compare the following palettes that we have on deck. Victoria Beckham Beauty's Olive Curation for her eye wardrobe collection. YSL's new released for the USA, number 830 Unexplored Garden, and from Lisa Eldridge, her Desert Gleam palette that was a part of her summer collection that released last month. I'll start with comparison swatches and go into the details of why I think these palettes are similar or different, but right off the bat you can see the similarity lies in the fact that they all have a green theme, but I think you can detect the nuanced differences. So let's first swatch the Victoria Beckham Beauty Eye Wardrobe palette in the olive colorway. I'll start left to right, and first we have this sandy beige that is a beautiful crease color on me and adds lovely haze to the eyes. Next we have a satin olive, a matte jungle green, and an antique gold. I guess you could say more like an antique khaki gold, but here are the swatches for the VBB Eye Wardrobe. Next, we have YSL's Unexplored Garden, and I'll begin with the matte taupe shade that is a lot cooler than Victoria Beckham Beauty's warmer caramel one. Next, we have that beautiful duochrome shade. It's like an overlay type of a twinkle effect that doesn't exist in VBB's palette. All we've seen is the matte, satin, and more of like a metallic finish right here. So it's not going to have the same overlay effect, but we can see a similar effect from the metallic in Unexplored Garden. It's going to be a lot softer in texture compared to VBB's more khaki antique. You can see the difference. There's a lot more texture there, whereas the YSL, it has a more of a softer feel to the metallic formula. And lastly, we have the YSL Unexplored Garden, like dirty olive matte, completely different than what we see from VBB's side. And now into Desert Gleam. I think I see, well, let me swatch first before I say anything. Dunes, which people were disappointed in because it's not going to have the same punch of color. It's more closely related, in my opinion, to VBB's color, as it is warmer, nothing like what we see from Unexplored Garden. Chrysina is that beautiful gold silver. Acacia is that dark brown matte. Well, a seamless matte, which I think is more of a hybrid finish from Lisa's lineup. Ablaze, which is this cool tone bronze. Sahara, which is the khaki matte. And Firefly, which is this dazzling flash of yellow gold. So here are all the swatches from the three palettes. And even though they all have that through line color theme of green, they're completely different in my eyes. First of all, VBB's is, I think, the smokiest out of the bunch, just with the inclusion of this jungle green matte, because this color matte is unlike what we see in Desert Gleam or even Unexplored Garden. And the warmer caramel shade from VBB definitely adds a lot more warmth, and out of the three palettes delivers more color through my crease than like what you see from Unexplored Garden here and what you see from Dunes in Desert Gleam. So let's come in a little closer to see a few of these shadows in action. First, going in with the caramel shade in VBB's Eye Wardrobe, and now the cool tone taupe from Unexplored Garden. You can definitely see there's more color delivery and just more warmth overall from that matte shade in the Eye Wardrobe. And this does show up on my skin tone. It serves more as like a diffuser shade for me, especially if I went in with that hardier jungle green. If I needed to blur the edges, there is a little bit of shadowing there, but not by much, not like what you see on this side. And now let's follow up with that matte green. I say jungle green because there's definitely more of a green feel to the color, like a forest green. And the more khaki olive tones exist in the satin shade and the metallic, in my opinion. And now with what I would consider more of like an olive green in Unexplored Garden, in the same fashion, just plopping it down. I will say, in terms of differences in formula that I recognize, that the YSL shadows in general are softer. They're softer in pan and on the blend as well. There's a little more grip in Victoria's mattes in her eye wardrobes. I will go so far to say they remind me of Pat's mattes. Old school Pat mattes from Mothership 1 give you that ultra color delivery and intensity right off the bat. The YSL formula is, I think, more finely milled and softer, but it doesn't have the same color intensity. So that's kind of where the trade-off is. In my opinion, probably the YSL shadows are easier to use because they are softer, and the VBB, you know, they're easy to blend, but in my opinion, the YSL texture is a little easier because of the softer, almost like pillowy soft feel of the YSL shadows. Let's follow up now with this, what I would say an olive, is that the right eye? Yes. An olive satin, and I'm just tapping here. And this satin formula is soft as well. I actually sometimes underestimate how easily this picks up on a brush, and it just lays it on right there. If you want this eye to be not as smoky, you'll probably have to go in with the antique metallic shade on the center of the eye, just for more contrast, because you can see this metallic, okay? But now we'll use this shade on the inner corner, and I'll just start here and carefully overlap it, and that definitely is the flash, right? It's the flash of color that we need, and as you can see, that definitely brightened up the look. Again, fantastic. It would be fantastic on the center of the lid, 100%. And following up with the Jungle Matte under the eyes, as I like to have that complete smoky experience. You can skip this step because if you have smaller eyes, you might have to use a smaller eyeshadow brush for more precision so that the shadow sits right under the lashes and doesn't drop down as far as it would when using a small shader brush, but still larger than a pencil brush, right? So that is to your discretion. And if you wanted to take this out a little bit, do whatever you'd like. So that is the VBB eye. It's a lot of smoke, a lot of girth, if you will. And now in Unexplored Garden, which if you want to see in action, I create 2 looks on my YouTube short that I took the overlay shade on the entire eye after I applied the taupe, and I also did a look where I applied the metallic on the entire lid instead of this is basically what's found in Pat's Bronze Seduction Fire Opal. That same flip setup is what's in this shadow. But for this example, just to have a correspondence here from what we did on the VBB side, is to pick up the olive metallic and place that on the entire lid. And this definitely has more shine than VBB satin. So what we applied here on the eye, there is some pearl, but it doesn't have the same reflectivity as the metallic in Unexplored Garden, but you can see the difference in smokiness. This is like moderate smoke, and this is more of an advanced smoke. Still pretty though. Maybe that's right up your alley and you're like, listen, I am a moderate smoke person. I'm like all about the moderate smoke. I just need enough to create that haze. I'm just cleaning up the edges of that crease application. And now I think appropriate to follow up with the Fire Opal shade on the inner corner. Now I will say, it's funny, when you first dip into YSL overlay shades, that's what I call them. They might refer to them as a metallic pop or a shimmer pop, depending on the palette. I didn't check online to see if they labeled them as such. But when you first dip into this type of a formula in the YSL shadows, or palette I should say, they're a little like creamier, and then I feel the formula starts to break apart a little bit and get loose, where thereafter you have to make sure you press this powder in well on whatever portion of the eyes that you're blending so they don't get away from you. I don't know do you experience that with YSL shadows? I found that, again, it gets a little loose, but you could use that to your advantage and manipulate the finish so that it, again, is more of an overlay roll versus a straight up metallic roll. It's not going to completely overtake the shadow you apply it on. It's going to have, again, more of like a reflective type of a shift change effect, if you will. More watercolor, or I should say more veil-like, instead of something heavier like a metallic that you get from the VBB Eye Wardrobe Olive colorway. So that is Unexplored Garden, and we can follow up with the Lisa Eldridge. But the thing is, which eye do we want to leave on? I have to get rid of one. And which one would that be? Well, I could tell you right now, when I go in with Sahara is not going to give what we're seeing right now. It's definitely lighter. It's on my skin tone. I don't rely on Sahara to be a dominant shade like I do for these two quads, which actually I just realized I'm not consistent. Let me apply this olive khaki shade under my lash line here because it was looking a little bare. You know what I'm saying? I rely on Sahara to blend out Acacia, or just to have maybe like a soft backdrop of khaki, but in no way do I expect to give it any of these. So that's where I have a shift for these palettes, or my expectations for these little palettes, that depending on the formula and the color, I therefore change how I use these shades and textures, and I don't have the same expectations for each, because I'm not going to go into VBB's palette. Well, I could for a soft eye, but this metallic is so shiny and intense that I have to be careful with its dose, because I would go in with the caramel all over the lid and crease, follow up. Well, I could follow up softer with this color. I've done it in my VBB video where I hop into this for the first time, that I just diffuse it, not pick up as much. So the outcome is more soft and not like, whoa. You know what I mean? So why don't we take off the VBB eye, because I think that's fair. Because Sahara's not going to stand a chance against what's going on right now. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, let's go in with our beloved Sahara, and purposefully will pick a stiffer brush, because the velvet formula from Lisa Eldridge is more of like a cream to powder hybrid, meant to be more lightweight in application, so you have a little more wiggle room in terms of the blend. And because of that, I'm going to wiggle back and forth to pick up adequate velvet, and we're just going to start building that from lid to crease. And you can see that, again, on my skin tone, Sahara is not going to have the same effect as you saw from Unexplored Garden, but I think it's crucial if you do, right? If you want this to appear as it is now on your lids and you are on my part of the skin tone spectrum, the brush is crucial. If you try to achieve this with a softy brush, you'll be mad, because the brush is too soft to pick up this creamier texture, and a stiffer brush will just be far more successful in picking up this type of a formula and laying it down in a way that shows up khaki. Now, that in and of itself, I think is pretty. And yes, maybe you have to get this Chikuhodo and Bobo collab Nebula eyeshadow brush. That is phenomenal for this reason. Or I'm thinking if you have Sonia G's Jumbo Blender, that could do the trick too. If you wanted to create this smoky khaki look with Sahara, 100%. Now we could stay right here, right? Or we can go in with a little bit of Chrysina. Now, Chrysina doesn't perform in the same way as YSL's, what I want to call metallic pop. It might not be that, but just for the sake of what I've seen on the website. They're metallic pop shade that's more overlay-like, as we discussed. Or we can apply it more metallic heavy, as we see from VBB's quad. I'll pick up just a tiny bit with my finger, like, again, so it could be more twinkly inkly and not like whoosh. And I'll gently tap it back and forth to create more of a scatter effect. So you see that? And interesting too, Chrysina takes more of a gold reflect when applied on top of Sahara, and that's fantastic. I think Chrysina is just beautifully versatile, not only in the color, but also in the finish, right? It could be more of a scattered, reflective finish, but it could be more of a heavy metallic finish where it looks more silver versus gold twinkle. I can also follow up with Chrysina on the inner corner. You know what? Let me do that because I think it'll be interesting to see it more silvery versus gold reflect, right? And for that, I'll pick up an actual small shader brush because I want a stronger lay down of the Chrysina color for it to appear more of that flash of silver. See that? And you still pick up more gold reflect, especially the portion that overlaps with Sahara here on the inner part of my eye. And on the very inner corner, it appears more silver. Isn't that cute? And I'm picking up a smaller brush just to refine that lay down. I want to curve it around. As you can see, let me turn my head this way. I'm filming in 4K, by the way, because someone really wanted to see my video in 4K, the one person. So I'm playing with my camera settings, but the camera viewfinder flipped my image. So everything I'm doing is opposite to what I see here, and it's driving me nuts. That's pretty. I like that. Now here is something that Lisa has that YSL does not. A darker shade for more smoke if I wanted to create it, or a more shadowy lash line, which is what I would like to do using Acacia. And hanging on to this smaller shadow liner pencil, taking up a little bit of Acacia and just stamping it here on top of Sahara, right? Just to create a little more contrast. I don't want to wing it out. I just want to create a little more depth so that my lashes will appear more voluminous if I decide to apply mascara or even my Ardell Naked Lashes in 421, right? That's pretty. Ooh, I like that. You know what? I'm going to apply my Prada. I don't need to, but that's how much I love the Prada mascara. So the most recent mascaras that I have tried, because I think I first tried Prada Scope in April. I think that was the month I first bought that mascara. Followed by Sochi Beauty's mascara and Milk Makeup's Kush mascara that was kindly sent by Milk Makeup. I also heard that the Lancome, I think, Idol mascara is fantastic. I haven't tried it yet, but I have a new Prada Scope on standby because I just adore this mascara so much that I felt like I needed a backup. All right, so those were the demos using all three quads. And I guess I could break down which quad would be best for which user, right? If you love luxury beauty, well, these are all I consider luxury beauty, but with the mini clutch packaging and the more monochromatic color story that leans more cool overall, with the what I call the fire opal flip shade with the softer matte and equally soft metallic with a fairly easy formula to use, and again a straightforward color story, then you can't go wrong with Unexplored Garden, which has easily become one of my most favorite YSL quads. I will have to then curate a top 5 list from all the ones that I own, but I can honestly say just off the bat, Captivating Dunes, Over Brune, Gwelly's Dream, Unexplored Garden. Is that 4 or 5? Captivating Dunes, Over Brune, Unexplored. Ooh, I got one more spot Babylon Roses. I would give it to Babylon Roses over Cosba Spices because Cosba Spices is gorgeous, but Gweli's Dream kind of serves that neutral type of a moment for me that I lean more towards because it's terracotta. And Babylon Roses with the plum shade and the more rose mauve matte in there with the overlay shades that are pink and lavender, I just think absolutely gorgeous. And again, you know how I love my mauve, so it had to be on that list. But Unexplored Garden, the more grungier color that we have here, okay, going on, it's just an easy pick. VBB's Olive Eye Wardrobe, easily out of all three, the smokiest, and I would say the most glam, again, just because of the level of intensity that you can achieve with this quad, given how dark this forest green matte can go. But what's equally alluring is this satin, that one and done, just wash of smoky haze that again can be dialed down to a more softer outcome if you don't pick up as much shadow and you kind of just whisk the edges, because again, the texture is so soft that it can be easily manipulated. You see that, where it doesn't look so heavy on the lid as I had demonstrated in that first demo, and having this antique, more metallic shade. The antique formula in VBB's quad, in my opinion, is a little limited in terms of what it can achieve, because it's not going to have that capacity to be more lightweight in nature, like this finish here, I should say, from YSL. The YSL overlay shade has more of that reflective capacity, whereas the VBB metallic is more of like a burnished finish. It doesn't have that same reflective quality as that metallic pop shade in the YSL quad. So if you typically like that twinkle effect, in my opinion, if you are hardcore VBB, you get it from her eye lusters. Those things have so much twinkle and shine. Or you'll even use one of her sequin satin gel liners as like the setup, blend it out, and then maybe follow through with another shadow from her eye wardrobe quad. Lisa Eldridge. Listen, you're gonna have a more diverse serving of finishes, in my opinion, from Lisa. And Desert Gleam specifically is more versatile in terms of color edit. You don't just have the greens, but you have the dark browns, you got the bronze, you got the silver gold, you got the whoa gold. You also have a softer sandy beige. And listen, we were able to achieve something with Sahara. I just had to use the right brush, okay? And then we have Acacia if we wanted to create a little more smoke and depth, right? That doesn't necessarily read all khaki like Unexplored Garden does, or all green and or olive green like the eye wardrobe from VBB. There's a little more wiggle room in Lisa's Desert Gleam. Overall, I think is more inspired by not just a color story, but again, a fashion era in the late 60s, early 70s, as Lisa had explained with the Vogue photo shoots in the desert. So it's a little more comprehensive, in my opinion, in terms of the inspiration. And I could say that for each palette, right? Because YSL's Unexplored Garden, you know, gardens can take on different sensibilities and different looks. And I think about Pat's Petalmorphosis, which is more a little whimsical, like it's like a punk electric garden. Like those gardens that have the neon signs in there, and you got all types of plant life and flower species that have these more neon-like colors. And VBB's is more like glam smoke, right? This is runway. This is just, you can see I'm running out of words. And at least this, to me, I think is a more comprehensive inspiration. It offers a little bit more, and I'm happy that I have this palette. I think Desert Gleam is fantastic. And one of those palettes that the more you use it, the more you discover its capacity. Also experimenting with different finishes. Like again, Chrysina, can be so flexible in how you apply it and use it. And I think that's what makes the formula so special, her luminous formula. It could be applied like a YSL metallic pop shade, or it could be applied like a more metallic wash of color in that traditional sense. But let me know what you think down below. If you have all three, what do you think about all three? And please feel free to share your insights about each, because people have their own interpretations, and I think it just fascinating when someone shares theirs. Then I'll say, I didn't even see that perspective, right? And when you introduce it, I think it makes the conversation more interesting. So with that said, if you made it this far, make sure you like this video by clicking the thumbs up. It does help me immensely in letting the algorithm know to recommend more of my videos for you to watch and for other beauty enthusiasts such as yourself. And consider subscribing, because there'll be more comparison videos like these on the way, or just another multi-look video with one of the eyeshadow palettes that I have here, or I was thinking about my favorite grunge makeup in my collection. Let me know what you think about that. And you'll know that upload immediately, especially when you click that notification bell. Feel free to stay on the channel and peruse a little more, browse around, which means I might see you in this video here. I'll see you over there, down in the comments for this one, and on here again next time.